Welcome everyone to the Agile Coaching Exchange in July 2025. Our speaker tonight is a returning speaker. We're really pleased to welcome Simon Copsey. Now, Simon is a transformation consultant and agile coach with quite a varied experience. Like me, he's from a software background originally, but he's also been in all sorts of organizations, large and small, from finance, a bit of public sector. What we like about Simon and what we like when he came to us in 2022 is he's quite a good thinker. He really is thoughtful around how he applies these things. And if you were with us in 2022, he did a session on intervening at the organizational level or working with leaders in a coaching way. Um, tonight, Simon is showing another aspect of himself and his skills as a parent and crossovers with the field that we're in. And we're really pleased to bring him here for that, especially given that we're about to have a break for summer. And I'm sure many of you are probably thinking about what to do with their families over the summer holidays. And we thought this was a really good overlap for that period. So we're really pleased to have him back. Please give a warm ace welcome to our speaker, Simon Copsey.
Thank you. Jeez. Oh, okay, you set the bar high, Ben, but I'll do, I'll do my best. That was a very generous introduction. Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen because I'm really bad at doing two things at once. I'm going to bring you back over here so I can see. So hopefully you can see something on your screen that says ahoy. Fantastic. I see some nods. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, let me just move things around. Right. So, hi, I'm Simon. I help happier staff deliver better things sooner. Thank you very much for having me a second time as well. So I'd like to talk about effective management. And the reason that effective management or management is so close to my heart is that um, even though management as a discipline is over 100 years old, since World War One, new managers are still thrown into management positions with really little support, or not as much as I'd like to see. And the reason that I want to talk about management and parenting in the same breath is twofold. Firstly, we can all relate to parenting. All of us have been kids, and some of us have been parents. And secondly, there's a lot of similarities between the two, as I hope will become clear. Um, let's jump in. So, really, only three things I want to talk about. The first one is what's so difficult about parenting and management. Secondly, I want to introduce you to a story, a parenting story, and in doing so, introduce you to two thinking tools. And then finally, I want to apply those same two thinking tools to a management situation, so those tools can be helpful there too. Three warnings. The first warning is I'm going to ask you questions. That's not to test you, it's to test me to make sure I'm conveying the material in a way that makes sense. I think the best way of doing the answers is maybe just putting them into chat, and I'll check the chat periodically. And then at the end, if there's anything we want to discuss, we can discuss. That's how I learn as well. So I appreciate your questions in advance. Secondly, all the good ideas in this presentation come from other people. Noah, my mentor, Nigel, my father, all these people. All the bad ideas are mine. And then finally, just want to be very careful here. The reason I'm talking about management and parenting in the same breath is not because you should treat your kids like staff and your staff like kids. We need to treat them both like human beings with their own wants and needs. But the distinction will become clear as we go. Right, so let's jump in. What's so difficult about parenting and management? So I'm going to talk about one at a time, parenting and management. I'm going to tell you some of the reasons I think they're hard. It's a short list. Hopefully some things will resonate, though it's not exhaustive. So from a parenting perspective, it feels like we're thrown in the deep end. My son is 11 months old and I'm going to be learning forever. There isn't a manual for this. What to do is not obvious. What worked is not obvious. I wouldn't know probably for months or years whether what I did on a particular day was helpful to my son or not. And we're often given advice that feels wrong. It just doesn't mesh with our beliefs and we don't know what to do with it. Management. It feels like we're thrown in the deep end. What to do isn't obvious. What has worked isn't obvious. So maybe months or years before what we did from member of staff, we'll know whether it was the right thing or not. And we're often given advice that just feels wrong. We don't know what to do with it. So the question I have for you is, what causes these two challenges from very different areas of our life to feel so similar? Answers in chat. If anything comes up to you, I'll just give you a few minutes. Bit of a joke. So J Deep says feedback. I'm curious. I guess feedback is a big part of both. Working with people, absolutely. And dealing with humans in both cases, yes. Power, hierarchy, persuasion, dictating, psychological safety. Oh, yeah. 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 Power and hierarchy, particularly, Simon, that feels really close. And both require to learn new skill managing a team, individual, and raising a child. Yeah. You're dealing with other people now, Emily. Pralisha says, meaning, yeah, human relationships. Yeah. Mutual dependency. Oh, that's really true. Yeah. Oh, see more than each other's surface layer. Yeah. Identity. Ooh, these are all things I never thought of. I like it. Oh, okay, let me see if I can live up. I think you got better answers than me, but let me see. Let me give you an answer and see if it lives up to the ones you've given me. But these all really resonate with me. Your personality shape up the interaction and conversations regardless. Yeah. All right. Okay, let me try and answer and see if it connects with what you're saying. I think it does. Right. So Julie Cho from who was the former VP designer at Facebook says your job as a manager is to get better outcomes from a group of people working together. And the key words here for me are get better outcomes from a group of people working together, i.e., help others succeed. And so the thing that feels common here about parenting and management is that both parenting and management are about helping others succeed. As parents, we need to help our children succeed, and as managers, we need to help our staff succeed. But the funny thing is, and it sounds really strange, is we're not them. We don't directly experience what they're experiencing, and we can't control them as much as sometimes I wish maybe we could. Whilst it's often clear what we need to succeed in our situation, it's not often clear to us what other people need from us to succeed in their situation. If it was obvious, we'd have less projects running late, we'd have less disgruntled staff leaving organizations. And also, whilst we can't directly control, whilst we can tell staff and kids what to do, um, we can't, whilst we can't directly control our kids and our staff. They're not mannequins, they're not avatars in a video game. And whilst we can tell them what to do, they probably won't listen. And secondly, as your family grows, as your team grows, you'll probably burn out. And thirdly, it's such a waste of initiative and creativity if you're telling them what to do. So what has helped us succeed in the past won't help us help others succeed in the future. And so the recap there is if managers and parents must now create conditions for others to succeed, then they no longer directly control or experience the situation. It's now less obvious what might be a helpful action or an unhelpful action because we're not in their situation. And therefore, to be effective, I believe that parents and managers must be able to discern helpful actions from unhelpful actions. So how do we sort between unhelpful and helpful? Let me tell you a story. So I want to tell you a story from, comes from a book by Alfie Kohn, Unconditional Parenting. He's a child psychologist. I'm going to speak about this situation as if it's first person because I can see myself making all these mistakes in a couple of years. So imagine this situation. My kid is lying, he's acting out at school, he's resolving conflicts using power, he's bullying, and he's not able to develop his moral compass. He's not making decisions in a way that I would feel right. Before I take ownership of this situation, if this was your kid, what would you do? Staring at chat, seeing what comes up for you, because you've probably have better ideas than me. Yeah. Mm. Talk to him. So Emily says, talk to him to get more of an idea of what he's experiencing and why these reactions are happening. Oh, and I like your word reaction. That's very interesting itself. Manu says, helping reflect on the actions, on his own actions. That makes sense. So both of you very kind of thoughtful and wanting to help the kid, wanting to help understand. So I'm be centered within myself as I approach the problem. Yes, that feels hard and true. Noah says self-reflection. Is he just like me? Ooh. Okay, I take out for a pizza and ask what's going on in his life. I love it. Oh, I love that. I need to get some pizzas. Right. Okay, let's see if I can live up to the kind of questions you got. First, understand and then be understood. Oh, JD, beautiful, beautiful Stephen Covey. Right. So I want to introduce you to the first thinking tool, which is a cause and effect diagram or a current reality tree from the theory of constraints. The way to read it is an arrow is an if-then clause. So if the lamp is not plugged in, then the lamp will not turn on. And a circle is an and clause. So if it is raining and if I'm outside, then I'll get wet. But I'll narrate you through everything. So these are the observations that we had earlier. My kid's lying, he's acting out of school, etc. And even if we just stare at these observations for a little while, we can start to see some cause and effect relationships. So for example, if my kid is resolving conflicts using power, then he's probably going to be caught acting out at school. And if my kid isn't able to develop his moral compass, and I'm not always present to be his moral compass, then he's again probably going to be making bad decisions when he's at school. He's going to be acting out at school. As you can tell, I'm already been believing that my kid doesn't make good decisions. And if that's the case, I'm going to tell him what to do because I don't want him to suffer from his bad decisions. I want him to have a good life. And if I tell my kid what to do, but it's decisions that exercise moral judgments, then he's not able to develop his moral compass. I'm robbing him of the opportunity to develop his moral compass. And also, if I tell my kid what to do, and then I need my kid to comply with what I say, what I've chosen for him, but he has his own desires, he's his own person, then I'm going to need to punish my kid when he doesn't do as I say. And if I punish my kid when he doesn't do as I say, and punishments are designed to be undesirable, then my kid is going to focus on avoiding punishments, as I would if I was him. If that's the case, and lying is one really good method of avoiding punishment, my kid's going to lie. I'm encouraging him to lie. Also, if I punish my kid when he doesn't do as I say, and punishment models power as a valid solution to conflicts, I'm also encouraging him to use power at school to solve his own conflicts. And if my kid is acting out of school and my kid is lying, well, I'm really going to feel this guy's not making good decisions. What am I going to do? I'm going to tell him what to do even more. So we have this self-perpetuating downward spiral. And Alfie Kohn says that the more the strategy fails, the more we assume the problem is with the child rather than the strategy itself, rather than our approach as a parent. Um, so would tackling any of these symptoms directly have helped? These ones at the top. I don't think so. As Deming says, every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets, right? Those are perfect reactions to my initial action of telling my kid what to do. Um, Knowing what you know now, where would you focus your action? So if you had a magic wand and you could wave your magic wand at any one box on the screen to try and unwind this woeful tale, where would you point that magic wand? The assumption that the kid doesn't make a decision. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Patrick, not telling my kid what to do. Manu, same, telling my kid what to do. Any other takers? Any other different views? I, I agree with you guys. It's the bottom. And I agree with the two that you've both selected together, actually, become clear one. I love it. They're spot on, you're ahead of me. Yeah, so I'm looking at this. Everything seems to stem from this, and the underlying assumption, Michaela, is you identified. Um, so why do I tell my kid what to do? This one's rhetorical, so you can have a break for a second. Um, the reason that this question is important is that I must have a particular need or goal that I'm trying to achieve. I'm telling my kid what to do for a reason. And as a coach to a family, as a consultant to an organization, for us to help people find a different means to the same end, we need to know what end they're trying to reach. For us to help them find alternative means of getting somewhere, we need to know where they're trying to get to in the first place. But we'll come back to that in a second. So recap, the current reality tree, as we just saw, the cause and effect diagram helps us trace back from symptoms or observations to the underlying cause. In this case, making all decisions for my kid impaired his ability to make good decisions himself. And focusing anywhere that isn't an underlying cause leads only to temporary improvement at best. So this is the question that I left outstanding. We'll come back to in a second. Before that, I want to talk about conflicts. I want to say conflicts. You can imagine that conflict as being a conflict is an either or decision where you can't choose both. You have to pick one. And you can imagine that being something in your head where you're trying to work out, oh, shall I do this or that? Or it could be a conflict with someone else where you're both on either side of the conflict. So for example, do I lend my son my car or not? Probably not, he's a year old. Do I stay in my current job and move to a new one? Do I keep my kid in school or do I homeschool him? As a country, should we begin austerity measures or not? We can only pick one or the other. So for me, a conflict is an either or. And you could be on both sides in your head, or you could be on one side and someone else on the other side. So I want to walk you through an imaginary conflict with my imaginary, well, hopefully not imaginary wife, in 2 years. I can imagine me having this conflict with my wife. So in 2 years, I can imagine my wife saying, oh, we should let our son make decisions. And I'll be saying, well, no, no, let's tell him what to do. As a conflict, it's either or. Like, we can't do both. We have to pick one. And often what we do is we compromise. And a compromise is where everyone loses. My wife might give our kid freedom. I'm going to be more strict. My kid then learns to go to my wife every time, and my wife and I argue all the time. And Ellie Goldratt says, our fear that conflicts will lead to a tug of war diverts management or parents to instead constantly struggle with unacceptable compromises. But really, every conflict can be removed. And that's what I want to talk about. First question we need to ask when we have this kind of conflict is, do we have the same goal? Does my wife and I have the same goal? What comes up for you? Do you think we have the same goal here? Hmm. Ben, not sure. Manu, it's not you versus your wife, it's you two against the conflict. Ah, I love that. Beautiful. It's supposed care for your child. The means are different. Oh, beautiful, Simon. Oh, you guys are good. You're one step ahead. I love it. And someone's thumbs up Simon's comment. Simon, that's a very strong name. I like it. Cool. Okay. So I'm kind of I see some suspicions that we may be same goal. And the reason I asked that question, and Joseph Gurney puts it really well, is that by focusing on higher and long-term goals, you often find ways to transcend short-term compromises. Knowing that you have a shared goal, the same destination in mind, gives you a reason to overcome the conflict. So if I ask my imaginary wife in imaginary 2 years from now, why do you want to let our kid make decisions? Well, she'll say, well, I want to have a happy family. And in order to have a happy family, I need to ensure our kid has a fulfilling life because our kid's happiness makes me happy. And in order to ensure our kid has a fulfilling life, I need to let him make decisions because autonomy helps our kid find and become the person he wants to be. And if you ask me 2 years from now, why are you telling your kid what to do? I'd say, well, I want to have a happy family too. But in order to have a happy family, I need to have an easier life myself. Because being a parent is hard. And in order to have an easier life myself, I need to tell my kid what to do because it's easier to tell my kid how to behave than to teach him how to behave. And so you're spot on. We have the same goal. We want to have a happy family. We just have different routes to going there, different routes to get there. Same destination, different routes. And the reason, and when we have different routes to get to the same destination, it just means we have different assumptions about the routes. And that's why we believe these routes are better. And the assumptions on either side of the conflict or either route to the same destination are what I've circled there. And Lisa Scheinkopf says that people are hurt and organizations do not improve due to our carelessness in the use of the word because. If we don't realize the assumptions we have that are leading us to go on these different routes to often the same destination, those conflicts will stay. But really, if we debug the assumptions behind the conflicts leading to these two different routes, we can actually realize that we can get in the same car together. So can you find an invalid assumption? Does any of these four assumptions in this argument seem incorrect? Because if we find one that's incorrect, it just evaporates that side of the argument or that side of the conflict. Is there anything there that doesn't look quite right, that doesn't feel valid? Appreciate you doing all the hard work this evening whilst I drink my water. Thank you. Easier to tell how the video is. Okay, got one vote for that. One vote for the bottom right. Any other votes? Telling a child what to do comes from fear because you want him to be successful. It's also perceived to be quicker. Patrick, on the right-hand side, it's easier just to tell the kid to do what he wants. Yeah. Ooh, okay. So I think you're all focusing towards the bottom right. I like this. And I love your explanations as well. Right. So yeah, this one is interesting. Is it really easier to tell my kid how to behave than to teach him how to behave? Is it really easy to teach to, is it maybe true for a 12-month-year-old, but is it true when he's 20 years old, when he's 30 years old? Do I want to be picking his underwear when he's 30? That's not easier for him. That's not easier for me. It won't lead me to my goal of having an easier life myself. That's hard for him, hard for me, hard for my wife. And Peter Senge suggests that short-term improvements often lead to that long-term dependency. So me constantly making decisions for my child today means I'm going to have to constantly make decisions for him in the future. And that does not take me towards my goal of having an easier life. So this isn't true, as you pointed out. And if this isn't true, I shouldn't be doing this because it's not leading me to where I want to get to. This route to the goal is invalid. And so maybe I can just do what my wife is suggesting and let my son make his own decisions. In order to have an easier life, let my son make decisions because the more decisions he makes, the less decisions I need to make for him in the future. So we're in agreement. We can hop in the same car, get to the same destination. So families and organizations were often working to the same goal. And conflicts, therefore, are usually disagreements on how to reach the goal, the route. And compromising means everyone loses, whereas finding an invalid assumption helps us create a win-win solution. Then the evaporating cloud was a tool that we just saw, and it provides a way of surfacing the different assumptions so we can debug them on either side of the conflict. Right. So we're going to take those two tools and we're going to apply them to a management situation. Right. So imagine you're a call center manager and customers calling into the call center are frustrated, costs are increasing, agent attrition is high, call volumes are increasing, everything's on fire. What would you do? No pressure. Address attritions, says Noahs. Any other suggestions? Okay, it says interview works to understand where attritions are coming from. I like it. Simon talk to people. So you and Michaela are on a similar page. I like it. Ben, some demand analysis with my Vanguard hat on. I love it. Noah's attritions are tied to at least two more dysfunctions. Interesting. So all of you are being curious. I love it. Be curious before furious. Okay, cool. So let me give you my way of answering it as I always do. So if I was using my traditional management or management consulting hat, using the approach that we're taught, I'd say, well, okay, if customers are frustrated, let's just improve agent training. Because if agents deal with customers better, they'll come off the phone feeling less frustrated. And if costs are increasing, let's have a hiring freeze. If agent attrition is high, let's introduce a retention bonus. And if call volume is increasing, what we'll do is we'll hide the call center number in the smallest font on the most obscure web page on our website. And then what we'll do is we'll take those solutions and we'll rank them versus in cost versus impact. We'll take the top three and we'll do them in that order. Done. Right? The problem is that, and you're probably ahead of me again, if we improve agent training, right, that comes at a cost. It's not free. And if we institute a hiring freeze, if we have a growing if we have a growing call volume and we don't hire more people, then the customers are going to be waiting for longer. So by the time they get through to some, they're probably going to be more frustrated. And if we introduce a retention bonus, again, that's not free. Costs are going to increase. If we hide the call center number, I don't know about you, but when they hide the call center number, make it really hard to find, by the time I talk to someone, I am a little bit frustrated as a customer. So all it really feels that we're doing is not fixing problems, but moving symptoms around. And Russell Acop is really well. He says managers are not confronted with problems that are independent of each other, but problems that interact with each other. Managers therefore don't solve problems, but manage messes. So problems we observe are often symptoms of an underlying cause. And in the previous example, I was just treating symptoms. Therefore, attempting to tackle those symptoms in isolation will usually just push the effects around. And the current reality tree, as we've seen before, can help us instead find and focus on the underlying cause rather than the symptoms. Right? Current reality tree. So again, here are the observations that I threw at you at the very beginning. There's a few more I didn't mention. Customers are going elsewhere to our competitors, and agent absence is high. Again, if we just stare at this for a little while until our eyes bleed, we can start to see some cause and effect connections here. So if customers are frustrated, that's probably one reason why they're going to go to our competitors rather than stay with us. If agent attrition is high and hiring and training agents is costly, that's probably one reason why costs are increasing. If agent absence is high, if people are just not coming to work, we're probably going to need to hire more agents to cover that absenteeism, and that's going to come at a cost. And also, call centers are often perceived as a cost to minimize, cost center. And if that's the case, what we often do is we incentivize agents to put the phone down as quickly as possible, keep calls short, because the more calls that they can, the shorter they keep the calls, the more calls they can handle in a day, and the less agents that we need. That's fantastic. If each customer and issue is unique, then time needed per call will vary. And if time needed per call will vary and agents are incentivized to keep calls short, well, customers are going to need to call back several times to resolve any one issue. And the flip side of that is that agents are going to be less able to resolve customer issues because they have to put the phone down quickly. If customers need to call back now several times to resolve any one issue, I don't know about you, but that sounds quite frustrating. And if customers must call back several times to resolve any one issue, then call volumes are going to increase. Not because there's more issues, but because we've created an artificial volume of calls. And John Seddon calls that failure demand, which is the demand caused by failure to do something or do something right for the customer. If we had sorted out the issue on the first call, they wouldn't need to call back 1 or 2 times more, re-explain the whole issue to a whole new agent and start the process again. If call volumes are increasing, we need more agents, then that comes at a cost. But also, if agents are less able to resolve customer issues, then agents are going to start to feel disengaged. Well, why am I here? And if that's the case, that is probably going to encourage attrition. It's probably going to encourage absence. With the costs increasing, it's going to further kind of lead to this downward spiral of we need to cut costs. I'll leave the questions here to be a bit more rhetorical, just to save you a bit of brain juice. I'm curious where you'd wave a magic wand. One sec, things are coming up in the chat. Let's have a look. So Noah says, I think costs are high due to attrition. And his assumption is call volumes are increasing, maybe as customers have to call twice, thrice, as they maybe need to speak to different agents. Oh yeah, I disagree. I disagree. I disagree. So I'm curious about this one here. Agents are incentivized to keep calls short because it leads, again, seems to be leading indirectly or directly to the whole mess that we're seeing. But recap, so the current reality tree is a way of tracing back from symptoms to underlying cause, as you already know. And in many organizations, failure demand takes 50% of capacity. And therefore, if we can resolve issues first time, then we'll double our agent capacity. So why did managers incentivize agents to keep calls short? Let's have a look at that. So if we imagine this call center head of finance and a head of customer success, the head of finance is saying, hey, well, we need to limit call length. And the head of customer success is saying, well, no, don't limit call length. We have a conflict. We love conflicts now. So the question becomes, do these guys have the same goal? Well, I think if you ask the head of finance, why do you want to limit call length? They'll say, well, I want to run a successful call center. And in order to run a successful call center, I need to minimize costs. It's the only thing I have influence over as a head of finance. And call centers are a cost to minimize, after all. In order to minimize costs, I need to limit call length because keeping calls short means we need less agents. On the other side, if you ask the head of customer success, well, why are you trying to not limit call length? They'll say, well, I want to run a successful call center. And in order to run a successful call center, I need to satisfy customers because satisfied customers improve long-term profitability. And in order to satisfy customers, I must not limit call length because each customer and issue is unique. So resolution time will vary. And so both have the same goal. And the question becomes, can you find an invalid assumption? I'll pause on this one. not just from a dramatic effect, but in case any ideas come up. Can you see an invalid assumption there? Patrick says left lower box. Probably less sinister, but that's how I read it. Simon says call short equals less agents. So Simon's pointing at the same one. Michaela says customer issues unique. Maybe we can spot patterns or groups. Maybe. Yeah, I think actually that's my wording actually. Okay, I think you're onto something there, but I think that's more my wording letting you down. You're quite right. There will be patterns, absolutely. I think. So I've misguided you, sorry. Let me tell you what I think. But I like this. Thank you. Thank you for entertaining my questions and seeing what comes up for you. So this one, I think, is the perpetrator. We've seen how this plays out. Incentivizing shorter calls that means that the customer will often need to call back a second or a third time, increasing call volume and likely increase the number of agents required. We've seen how it plays out in the cause and effect diagram. And so if this isn't true, then we don't need to do this because it won't lead to the intended effect. And so what we can do is we can just listen to the head of customer success. So we could do the same thing. In order to minimize costs, we shouldn't limit call length because solving issues on first contact reduces call volume and therefore the number of agents required. So again, same goal, same destination, different routes, but one of the routes isn't leading to where we expected because an assumption related to that route was incorrect. Right, summary. So in order to help others, as managers and as parents, we need to discern a helpful action from an unhelpful action. Helpful actions come from valid assumptions about reality. Unhelpful actions come from invalid assumptions about reality. As a father, I told my kid what to do because I thought it was easier to tell my kid how to behave than to teach him how to behave. But that wasn't true and encouraged lying, bullying, a harder life for all of us. Not an easy one. Everyone lost. As a head of finance, I limited call length because I thought shorter calls would mean less agents are required. But that wasn't true. It led to more calls, more agents, more costs. Everyone lost. That almost rhymed. And the current reality tree, therefore, can help us understand the consequences of incorrect assumptions and as the evaporating cloud that can then help us find and replace an invalid assumption with a valid one. But there's one more thing, and this is the bittersweet piece for me, which is as managers and as parents, we're usually the source of the problems we see. Whose decision was it to tell my kid what to do? And whose decision was it to limit call length? It was the parent, it was the manager. And so Peter Senge says, when people who are actually creating a system, the parents, the managers, start to see themselves as the source of their problems, they invariably discover a new capacity to create the results they truly desire. And that's haunting, but it's bittersweet. It's scary to know that I create the problems in front of me, but it's so reassuring to know that I have the power to fix them. So now, books. All these books contributed greatly to this talk. If you want to do a bit more reading, happy to share this. Of course. Thank you for having me. This is where you can find me and have a little book. If you like to understand how organizations can get out of their own way, I like to write a little bit. Yeah, thank you very much. That was everything. Thank you very much also for being so interactive. You taught me. You said so much more than I could have thought of myself. Yeah, mind blowing. Thank you.